Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lora Rolling and this is part 11 of the Merry Christmas Ornament tutorial. This is the Merry Christmas ornament that we are making. It is so cute. I love it so much. And today we are going to be doing the unit called the HR. If you haven't seen parts 1 through 10 yet, that's okay. You can do these out of order. I'll have those videos listed down below in the description. That way when you finish this one, you can go back and watch those. We just have a few materials to get ready, so let's get them listed and then we can get started. Let's go. So the beads that we're going to be using in today's video are both Miyuki Delicas. I have opaque black and silver lined gold. I'm just going to keep it simple and call this black and gold. We'll also need some beading thread and a beading needle. I like to use the Eslon Fire in the color Crystal. And then this one is 4-pound thread. You could also use a 6-pound thread if that's what you like. And then I like to use a size 10 beading needle. You could also use a size 11 or a size 12. For implements, I like to use my long nose pliers to hold on to my thread, and then I cut my thread with scissors. And then in the beginning, I'm going to show you how I use the fire method to end the tail. Alrighty, so we just need to thread our needle with about 3 feet of thread, and then we can get started. So I've threaded my needle, and now I'm going to pick up my first 3 beads, which are all black beads. Then I'm going to take my 3 black beads and I'm going to pull them down to the bottom of the thread, leaving about a 6-inch tail. Now let's make a square knot. So cross over on top and then pull the tail through. And then do that again. Cross over on top and pull the tail through. So now you should have 2 loops that look kind of like a little snowman. Now I'm going to put my 2 fingers in the bottom loop, the one that has the beads in it, and then I'm going to pull on the tail and the long thread until that top loop turns into a knot. Now with the tail, I'm not going to touch it to the flame, but I'm going to get it super duper close. We just want to melt the tip. Just like that. And it turns it into a little knot or a little bead. Now let's take our 2 fingers that are in the loop, and at the same time, we're going to pull on the long thread and then twist that loop while we're pulling on the long thread until the tail meets the long thread. Now I'm going to take my thumbnail and I'm going to pull that knot all the way down to the beads. And it turns the beads into this teensy little triangle. And that completes row number 1. Now I'm going to tug that knot over to one side, and then I'm going to pick up my next 2 beads, which are both black. So I'm going to take these 2 beads, and it looks like the tail or the thread is coming out of this bead right here. So I'm going to sew through the next bead, the one that it's not, that it doesn't look like it's coming out of. And then I'm going to make sure that those beads sit right on top of their buddy beads. Now let's pick up one black and one gold bead. And we're coming out of this bead, so let's sew through the next bead. And once again, try to get those beads to sit right on top of their buddies. And we're trying to keep this one like that also, just like that. Alrighty, now let's pick up two black beads. And we're coming out of this bead, let's sew through the next. And then we're also going to sew through the buddy bead, the one that's right below it. When we sew through two beads like this, we're stepping up, and that puts our thread in position to start the next row. So that means that we've completed row number 2, and now we're ready to start row number 3. Let's start by picking up two black beads and then sew through the next bead. Now let's pick up one black bead, and we're coming out of this second bead right here. If you notice, the next bead is kind of set downward. We're going to skip that downward bead and we're going to sew through the next one that's poking up. The poking up bead is what I refer to as the up bead. So now let's pick up one black and one gold bead. And let's sew through the next bead. Now let's pick up one gold bead, and we're going to skip that downward bead and sew through the up bead. Let's pick up two black beads and sew through the next. And then we'll pick up one black bead. We're going to skip the down bead and we're going to sew through the up bead and its buddy. Sewing through those last two beads means that we have completed this row, and now we get to start row number 4. Let's start with two black beads and sew through the next. Always making sure that those beads sit right on top of their buddies. Now let's pick up one black and sew through the up bead. One black and sew through the up. I like to turn my work as I go. It makes it easier to sew. So you might want to do that too if it makes it easier for you. Let's pick up one black bead and one gold bead and sew through the next. One gold and sew through the up. One gold and sew through the up. Two black beads and sew through the next. One black and sew through the up. And then the last bead in this row is one black. So we're going to skip that down bead, sew through the up bead, if we can get it, and also sew through its buddy. Sewing through those last 2 beads. And now we get to start row number 5. Let's start by picking up 2 black beads. Then 1 black. One black, one black, one black, and one gold, one gold, one gold, one black, two black beads, one black, one black, and one black. Sewing through the last 2 beads. And now we get to start row number 6. Let's start with 2 black beads. One black, one black, one black, one black, one black, and one gold, one gold, one black, one gold, one black, two black beads, one black, one black, one black, and one black. Sewing through the last 2 beads. And now we get to start row number 7. Let's start with 2 gold beads. One black, one black, one black, one gold, one black, one black, and one gold, 1 gold, 1 black, 1 gold, 1 black, 1 black, 2 black beads, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, and 1 black. Sewing through the last 2 beads, and now we get to start row number 8. Let's start with 2 gold beads, 1 gold, 1 black, 1 black, 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 black, 1 black and 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 black, 1 black, 1 gold, 1 black, 1 black, 2 gold beads, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, and 1 gold. Sewing through the last 2 beads, and now we get to start row number 9. Let's start with 2 black beads, 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 black, 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 black, 2 black beads, 1 gold, 1 black, 1 black, 1 gold, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 2 gold beads, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, and 1 gold. Sewing through the last 2 beads. And now we get to start row number 10. Let's start with 2 black beads, 1 black, 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 black, 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 black, 2 black, 1 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 black, 2 black beads, 1 black, 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 and 1 black. Sewing through the last 2 beads. And now we get to start row 11. Let's start with 2 black beads, 1 black, 1 black, 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 black, 1 gold, 1 black, 1 black, 2 black beads, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 gold, 1 black, 1 black, 2 black beads, 1 black, 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 1 black. Sewing through the last 2 beads. And now we get to start row 12. Let's start with 2 black beads, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 black, 1 gold, 1 black, 1 black, 2 black beads, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 gold, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 2 black beads. Oops, I keep doing that. Okay. 1 black, 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 and the last bead in this row is 1 black. And sew through the last 2 beads, and that completes our 12 rows for our triangle. Now, if this is the first triangle that you've done with me, I add connection beads to some of the sides on these units, and that is so that we can connect the units together. I also put a bead at the corners to cap it. So this particular bead unit, we are not going to have any beads on this side, but we are going to have beads on this side, and we are not going to have any on this side. So to start this out, let's cap this corner with 1 black bead, and it turns it into a little point. And now what I like to do is I like to turn my triangle over. It just makes it easier to sew through the beads. So instead of adding any beads, because we're not going to have any beads up this row, I'm just going to sew through 1 bead at a time. I'm going to follow this quadrant line. You don't have to, as long as you're sewing through 1 bead per row. Our goal is to get to this corner top bead right here. So go ahead and sew up 1 bead at a time until you get to that top bead, and this is where I usually ask the question of the day. So I had the option of doing gold or silver when writing the Merry Christmas when I was designing this, and I picked gold. So I very possibly could have just as easily picked silver. I like both. But so let's put an emoji in the comments that is something gold. Okay, so it could be a gold medal or a gold coin emoji or just any gold emoji. And I can't wait to see what you come up with. I love seeing all those emojis. So fun. And if you don't know how to put an emoji in the comments, then just comment gold and I'll understand. That'll be interesting for me too, because I know it took me a while to figure out how emojis even worked on YouTube, right? Alrighty, so we are now up at the top of this corner, so we're going to cap this corner with 1 black bead. And now we are going to add connection beads up this row. So let's add 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 black, 1 black, and 1 black. And now we're going to cap this corner with 1 black bead, turning it into a point. So now all our corners are finished and we've added our connection beads. There's not going to be any connection beads up this row. So let's just sew up 6 beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I apologize for all of my notifications going off. I'm a mom, so I don't like to turn off my notifications. I hope that that doesn't bother you. Anyways, okay, and I seem to be very popular right now. I don't usually get this many notifications all in a half an hour. But okay, so I'm coming out of the top of this bead, so I'm going to do what I call a zigzag. I'm going to go down the bead right next to this one, and then I'm going to go up the bead right next to that. And now let's sew up 2 more beads or 2 more rows, 1 and 2, and we'll do that zigzag again. We're coming out of the top of this bead. We're going to sew down the bead right next to that one, and then we'll sew up the bead right next to that. And now we can sew up 2 more rows or 2 more beads, 1 and 2. Those 2 zigzags just make sure that these last beads that we added are extra secure. And so yeah, I like to do that and before we cut our thread. So let's cut our thread now, and we'll pick up our thread with our long nose pliers, and then we will cut it as close to the bead as possible without cutting the bead. Just snip it right off, and that completes our HR unit. We only need 1 of these for the project, so I will see you in a second. That was so much fun. Thank you so much for being here with me today and beading along with me. Remember to like and subscribe and hit that bell button so you're notified when the next video comes out. I can't wait to see you there. Thanks for watching.